Ready to be riveted, tech aficionados and business visionaries. We're embarking on an electrifying journey into the heart of IT entrepreneurship in today's episode. I'm sitting down with a self-made IT entrepreneur who has navigated the ups and downs of tech startup challenges, scaled the colossal walls of starting a business, and emerged as a champion. And today we'll unearth the critical moments, the strategic decisions, and the guiding values that shaped our guest's successful venture. It's really a story of tenacity, innovation, and the transformative power of a steadfast vision. So strap in as we discuss the painstaking truth about what it takes to survive in today's market as we talk about successful acquisitions, growth strategies, creating an entrepreneurial operating system, peer networks, and the importance of having faith in more than just yourself. Whether you're in the startup trenches or learning to maximize your growing opportunities, the wisdom you'll uncover today is worth sticking around for. Let's go. Hey, I'm thrilled to introduce Jason Etheridge, the founder of an innovative IT services company, Logicspeak. Jason's story is one of passion meeting purpose as he transformed his expertise into a leading provider of managed services. His entrepreneurial spirit has actually been shaped by a blend of essential business strategies and personal values. With his unique blend of industry knowledge and faith, Jason has navigated the competitive world of IT services to really forge a company that stands out for its excellence and integrity. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. So I tell everybody this, I'm going to have fun with you a little bit, you know, and I know you're a wealth of knowledge and you've probably made all the mistakes everybody can make, but I really like to dig in and get to know the nitty gritty of my guests. And so on a lighter note, I was hoping outside of the world of IT services and everything you do for a living, could you share something, just like a fun fact about yourself that maybe is a little bit unexpected and a world away from IT?
Absolutely. So if you are familiar at all with the Enneagram, I'm an Enneagram 7, which means that you can't pigeonhole me into one thing. I want to do all the things. So if you don't find me at work, you will find me either riding my Harley or singing in a chorus. So those are the bookends of my life. So
I took 2 years of chorus in high school. I'm not a wonderful singer by any mention of the word, but I can hold a key. So there's something to be said about that. I think riding motorcycles is super interesting, but my poor wife, I'd probably give her a heart attack if I did that on any sort of consistent basis. So God bless your wife.
Don't say that too quickly, because the only reason I have my motorcycle is because it was grandfathered into the marriage.
Oh,
what I had prior to the marriage got to stay. If I didn't have it, she would not be a fan. But she's famous for saying that might just have to be your thing.
Yeah,
and I'm okay with that.
Well, we talked about our meeting up and maybe have our wives meet each other at some point. That might be dangerous if they start comparing notes, right?
That's right. She would look for any reason she could to try to help me out of that motorcycle. So please don't give her any more ammunition.
Yeah, I won't. I promise. So today we're going to be talking about kind of the early days of starting something, right? And we talked about you starting your IT services firm and potentially what inspired you to do so, and really what was the precipice for the launch of your organization. So let's go back to those early days. It kind of like, where did it all start for you, Jason?
So I went to Georgia Tech for college. And while I was at Georgia Tech, I was in the cooperative program, which, I don't know, for your listeners, you work a semester, go to school a semester, work a semester, go to school a semester. It takes you an extra year to graduate, or in my case, I was a professional student, so I took 6 years instead of 4. But I got a wealth of knowledge about business that I wouldn't have gotten any other way. And so it was invaluable to me, and worked there when I graduated. And so it was a company that focused on enterprise software development called Extreme Logic at the time. And I got to work under the CFO, made my way all the way up from a co-op to the director of IT. And I learned, I always tell people I got my master's at that company, by getting to work under the CFO. So, fast forward in 2003, the company was acquired by Hewlett Packard. We went from a 280 person company to a 140,000 person company overnight, which is, we could talk for hours on a separate podcast about that experience. But at the time, one of my buddies from college worked with me, and essentially it was his idea to say, listen, I don't know if we both want to work at a 140,000 person company. Let's start a small business and let's bring technology to small business. And so that's ultimately what we did.
I love it. And, I know this as well as you do. You've got to have something that really differentiates you in the marketplace. At the time and now, how has that evolved? So at the time, what was your thing and what is it today? Or things. You could probably throw a few things in there.
Sure. Well, so it's baked into our name. We spent about 6 months in a conference room kind of thinking through what this business would become. And both of us were unusual in that we could complete sentences and, weren't just typical IT guys, that were more more comfortable in the server room. And so the name Logicspeak was really this idea that we speak the language of technology, but we translate it into, business. And so, you'll never find us making fun of people for what they don't know about technology. We don't speak in 3-letter acronyms. We really, try to speak at, the level of our clients and to explain things in a way that makes sense. So that was where the name came from. And then as we've grown over these past 20 years, this will be our 20th anniversary, which is amazing still to think about. It's unbelievable. I can't believe it's been that long. But now we've really moved from doing anything anyone will pay us $1 to do to being more of a proactive company. We really believe that success of technology is in enabling the effective use of technology to accomplish our business goals. And so we are all about being proactive and strategic and designing technology solutions to actually solve business problems.
Yeah, no, that's real. As we said earlier, I am curious, what do you think is one of the challenges that many organizations outside of doing it their own, that they seek your professional support and help with, right? Because I think a lot of people, even if they have an IT professional on their team, a lot of times they're just like, I don't know what I don't know. I don't even know how to ask the questions. So like, at what point are they having so much pain around managing their IT needs that like it makes sense to really look at somebody like Logicspeak and yourself?
That's something that we hear a lot, actually, that business owners generally are not technologically savvy in terms of that's not what they do their day job. And so, what we really try to do is to partner with our clients. They're good at something. It's either financial services or engineering or architecture, some sort of professional service. And we really want to enable them to focus on that. And so, if you look at the changing technology landscape, Microsoft 365, they are literally rolling out new features in their platform daily. Investing. Oh, so sorry. That's my, the lead certification of our building is, I don't know if it's okay. I'll just keep going, but, the camera will come or the light will come back on. But essentially technology is changing at such a rapid pace these days that businesses without the help of a professional services organization like Logicspeak, they just can't keep up. And so, what we bring again is a strategic approach so that we can help them plan for the next 12, 24, 36 months on how to use technology effectively to accomplish what they need to.
Well, I tell you what, that was a lights out answer for sure.
Yeah. I'm so sorry about that. It's, we moved in this building a year and a half ago, and we still can't get the lights to stay on in every room.
There's probably somebody you could call about that for your technology assistance, right?
That's right. That's right.
All right.
Property management.
Yeah. So I'm curious, what were some of the, or what was one of the biggest surprises you encountered when starting your business? And what do you wish that you had known beforehand?
So there are so many, in terms of starting a business as a technology person. And I think, for your listeners, that's what happens a lot. You're really good at something, and it's probably not running a business. Jared and I, my partner at the time, we were really good at technology solutions. We had been, in IT for years at that point. And so the surprising thing, or the thing that we learned very quickly, is that nobody teaches you how to run a business. Technicians start a business, they end up growing and doing really well, but then all of the challenges of having people, creep in. I'll tell you a funny story. My first client ever when we started the business, we got them as a client. We had known them for years, and we were passing in the hallway. His name was Drew, and he said, "Oh, I'm so proud of you. You guys are going to be great. Do you want some feedback or some advice?" And, as a young, doe-eyed 26-year-old, I was all ears, like, "Oh, please tell me. I thought I was going to get some nugget of wisdom, to run my business. And he said, "Well, don't hire employees." And I said, "What? No. We want to grow. We want to be big. We want to do all these things." And he's like, "Oh no, it all falls apart when you hire them." And so, that rings in my ears over the last 20 years. I mean, of course, we've grown past that. We have many employees, and almost every single week, I think of that in terms of the challenge that we'll have. And it's really hard to manage human beings. It's much easier to manage technology.
Oh, man.
For sure.
Especially being in the technology business, at least, you get predictability out of the technology for the most part. You get used to its bugs. You get used to it. But people are just people, and people will surprise you every single day. So I can understand why somebody would come at it from that perspective, right?
Well, it's, I've learned over the years, and this is good advice for anybody in any sort of business, but as a manager, you have to be flexible enough to let people bring their true selves to their job. I think that's how people feel valued the most, is when they feel comfortable enough and that there's enough trust between an employer and an employee that they can bring their whole selves. And sometimes you have a bad day. Sometimes you had a fight with your wife that morning. Sometimes your kids would not get out of bed so that you could get them to school on time. And, we've tried really hard over the years to understand the humanity of our employees, and to try to be flexible in that regard.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. And there's got to be some room for that. I do think that COVID changed the way people look at their work. And I think there's been some good things. There's obviously been some bad things about that. In the IT world, we've been working remotely forever, right?
Yep.
And so, but a lot of organizations had to learn and adapt to that. I'm sure that you were one of the heavy lifters in helping your clients really adapt to that, right, through COVID. But it has changed work forever. And it has changed employment, the way that we engage with team members, and almost their expectations of how they can live their lives, and this work-life balance thing. It's really work-life integration now, right? It's not the same thing as it was before. I'm curious, from your perspective, how has that impacted your business at all?
So we have, starting with 2020 when COVID hit, we were. In our company, we were very much an in-office culture, just because of the camaraderie and IT people being able to lean out their door and ask, "Has anybody ever seen this problem before?" But overnight, we had to help customers who had never been remote understand how to work remotely effectively. Thankfully, we had been investing in Microsoft 365 technologies for years prior to that, Azure, in terms of server hosting and things like that. And so actually, we had a fairly easy time getting the rest of our clients, kind of set up remotely to be able to connect into their workstation. But it has changed how companies, to your point, it has changed how companies work. It's changed, we're not around conference room tables as much anymore. There's always someone remote with Teams or Zoom or, whatever the video technologies that they're using. We used to design technology infrastructure for, the best in-office experience, meaning, if you come in the office, opening a Word document off the server was as fast as it could be, a large PDF or something like that. But now we try to build experiences where people are equal citizens. If I'm remote or if I'm in office, I have the exact same capabilities. So it's really changed from a technology perspective how we design technology so that it can be used effectively by people around the world, really.
Yeah, great points. You talked to me a little bit previously about your EOS strategy, and that kind of makes me think, look, that's got to be ever evolving as well. But for those of you who don't know what that is, that's an entrepreneurial operating system, right? It works and pairs very nicely with the IT, background and experience. But how has you kind of developing that over time influenced the management and growth strategies within your company?
I cannot overstate the impact that EOS has had on our business. There's been 2 or 3 books or concepts over the course of our 20 years that, have really changed the trajectory of our company. The first was the E-Myth. by Michael Gerber. Probably a lot of people have read that book or are familiar with that book. It's sold, millions and millions of copies at this point. But we really kind of understood how to design our business to be repeatable and the kind of that franchise model and the consistency of successful businesses. And then ultimately that was strategic in me buying out my business partner, because we were working with an EOS, not an EOS, but an EMET coach. And he helped us to kind of see that we were kind of, both had our hands on the steering wheel. So anyway, that was a pivotal book. Moving into EOS, as I mentioned before, nobody teaches you how to manage a company. And so EOS really brought consistency to our company from a management perspective, so that our employees knew that we had set 90-day goals, that we have rocks that we're going to accomplish. So instead of the company doing like this, we were more streamlined and actually, had a target and a bullseye out into the future. It helps us to set 1 year, 3 year, and 10 year goals for our company, and actually a process for how to stick to those. One of the fundamental principles of EOS really is this kind of 90-day worldview, that it's really hard for humans to see past 90 days in terms of a tangible set of goals. And so that's why you go 90 days to 90 days from an EOS perspective. So anyway, like I said, I could talk for hours on EOS, but it has really changed the way that we run our company. And I think if you ask our employees, it's changed how the company shows up for them, which has been really, really good.
So as far as your EOS kind of strategy, who all within the organization contributes to that plan and that strategy? Like, is it everybody, or is there a core circle of people?
So if you kind of talk to an EOS implementer, and there's tons of them, you really start kind of top down. You kind of model or learn on the leadership team how to implement and to do EOS first. It starts with your L10 meetings, your level 10 meetings with your leadership team. And that's, we self-implemented. We had a person on staff that really had a heart for business logistics and kind of went to school for that. And so Ashley is her name. She just kind of took to it like a duck to water, which was awesome. So we started with leadership. And then as you start to understand the concept of EOS, as it starts to make a tangible impact to the company, your employees start to see what you're doing, and you kind of then roll it out to the departments. So really everyone in the company now has a role to play in our EOS system. Every department has L10 meetings as well, and they all set personal rocks that they're working on. Usually that's a training rock of some sort to help us move our skills forward and grow as an organization. There are departmental rocks that the departments are working on from a 90-day perspective, and then all of that rolls up into our company rocks as well. So it helps us to move forward as a company. And one of the things I tell new employees as well is that if you look at the energy of every employee as an arrow, a lot of times if you don't work on your management, then your arrows can have sideways energy or actually can offset each other. And EOS helps to align our arrows in the same direction.
Yeah, alignment is so important. Speaking of alignment, you mentioned that you previously had a partner, right? And I think that a lot of people go into business with partners, and some go well and some do not. Some, it gets to the point where one partner needs to buy out the other for just personal reasons, and then other times it's for that partner is burnt out and not prepared to go the distance, right? Sometimes they're a little older and they're looking to retire and just get out of the business, right? So I'm curious, you've obviously had some experience with this. Like, share some of your ideas around partnership, like the importance of it, when it fits, when it doesn't, maybe even the experience of buying out a partner, anything that you feel comfortable with. Because I think that anybody who's looking to start a business, a lot of times they feel like they need a partner. And sometimes that's a good idea, but sometimes it's not such a good idea. And I'd love to hear your perspective on it.
Absolutely. I think for our business, having a partnership up front when there is so much work to be done is instrumental, actually. So, it was very, very good for us. Business ownership can be a very lonely place because, your employees are looking to you to set the direction. They're looking to you to always be positive and always be confident and always be clear about the direction of the company. So like I said, it can be a very lonely place. So having Jared and I together, really helped to share the load. So I definitely recommend partnerships in that regard. The mistake that we made, which I think, after having talked to a lot of business owners, is that, you kind of go into it with, this assumption that everything's going to be roses and perfect and utopia. And so, of course we're going to agree on everything, and, we'll be 50-50 owners and it'll be great.
Right.
It rarely is that. And I would say Jared and I agreed on 80 to 90% of everything. But, when you are 50-50 owners, the no always wins, because if both of you don't agree, you can't do anything. So we oftentimes made decisions not because it was the best decision. It was because we couldn't convince the other guy. So my first recommendation is always to people who are thinking of starting a business with another partner is it should at least be 51-49. There has got to be a tiebreaker. There has to be somebody who says, listen, I get it, I understand, but we're going to go in this direction. And so, that I think was one of our challenges up front. The other is, and this actually speaks back to EOS, there is this concept in the EOS world of a visionary and integrator. The visionary has 20 ideas a day, or in my case, my integrator would tell you an hour, the person who's just like all the new ideas and all the great things we could do and is always looking toward the future. And then oftentimes there is another type of leader who is the integrator, the person who is pragmatic, who sees the challenges and who says, here's 20 great ideas. We're going to focus on these two. And we're going to do them really, really well. And when you start a business, you probably are one or the other. Rarely is someone equal measure of both. And I can even look back on my history with Jared, and he was the integrator. To me, he always looked like the brakes, and I was the visionary, and I always looked like the gas. And had we had that language, had we had had Traction, the book by Gino Wickman, been written 20 years ago, we probably would still be in business together, because we would have understood that it takes both, and that we could have leaned into that. So, 51-49 or different, but also understanding the roles that people play and having a visionary kind of lean into what they're good at and make recommendations on direction, and then the integrator who actually makes them happen. And that's a really, really good partnership to have.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. I think one of the challenges is not embracing the fact that you're different, and that you're trying to make decisions on equal ground when that's never going to be the case. So I like the idea of, first of all, people have different strengths and you should leverage those differently. But at the same time, somebody has to make the calls, right? And call the shots. And without that person, I think you're always going to be stuck at, again, the no, right? Which doesn't move businesses forward, doesn't help you to grow and execute. And I do think your description about the two different parties and having specific goals within those, it makes a lot of sense. You need a visionary to move a company forward if you're going to grow, right? Yep. And you definitely somebody pumping the brakes, red light, green light. You're like, I love the vision there, Jason, but we need to think about what implications this has for our organization, right?
Well, a visionary only led company or a visionary led company with no integrator, you always are chasing the new and shiny. Right. And you can never stick to fully completing something because there's something new on the horizon. And that very much defines a part of our company's history where we didn't know that. And now that we have our integrator, as I mentioned, Ashley, she's able to provide more consistency and predictability to the organization that I was never able to do.
Yep.
And it is because of what you said, leaning into what you're good at, understanding what role you play, and not honestly feeling guilty that you weren't designed differently, that you do have a role to play.
Yeah, amen to that. It kind of leads me down this thought. Well, we'll get to this because I want to get your perspective. But let's talk about debt for a minute and the way that organizations kind of try to grow. I always get amazing perspectives on this. I mean, I work with a lot of software companies that, welcome, giving a big part of their company away and taking on partners or, trying to go public, could be, venture capital, it could be angel investors, it could be all sorts of different things. And then on the other side, you have private equity, like they come alongside you, they inject a lot of capital, they have a 5 to 7 year kind of, track record of trying to do X, Y, or Z. And then you have, kind of bootstrapping or trying to finance your way to building a business. I'm just curious to hear your perspective on how you were able to build your company and why it was effective.
Yeah. I thought a lot about this, obviously doing a lot of reflection at our 20-year mark. We did the bootstrap methodology. All of our growth was organic until I bought out my business partner, and I ended up kind of paying him off. And then I did acquire another company in 2015. I did owner financing there, so we did have some debt, for I think about 7 years. But I didn't have to have a partner, a private equity partner, or angel investor, or something like that. And honestly, looking back, that first 8 years of our business, we were very debt averse. We were very risk averse as a company. And I think looking back on it, I think we kind of grew slower than we intended or slower than we wanted because we wanted to do it organically. That's not to say that it can't be done, but, I think unless you just happen to have deep pockets as an owner already when starting a business, it's going to take an infusion of capital if you want to kind of get out of the what I call the ladder version of growth. You grow a rung on the revenue side, you hire some employees. You grow another rung on the revenue side, you hire some employees. And I think that growth can be predictable, but it might take you longer than you want. So if I had it to do over again, I probably would have either aligned with a private equity firm, given up some ownership to infuse some capital, or found another investor who could have done that. But not to say that either one, to your point, is right or wrong. I think you have to align your growth speed with your type of investment, and the organic path is probably a little slower.
Yeah, slower, but
you maintain all the control.
That's right. But I don't think there's a right answer. It's what works for you, and it certainly. There's more than one pathway to success, but it's interesting to always hear, reflecting back after 20 years, I probably would have done it this way. And I think that's always good for people to hear, especially if they're more at the beginning or at the midway point from, say, a 20-year journey or something like that. So I'm curious from your perspective, as your company grew, how did you maintain really the ethos of who you are, especially when you consider how your faith has kind of contributed to your organization and the people you've put around you?
So that answer really starts from the moment I bought out my business partner. When we started, we had this really long mission statement that didn't mean anything, and it had lots of buzzwords because we thought that's what you did when you built a business plan. But the first thing that I did when I bought the company was to really decide how did I want it to be different from what it was when I was a half owner of this business. And so, at the time I was a student of leadership and Andy Stanley's leadership podcast. I listened to quite a bit. And so I started with a mission statement, right? A 1-sentence mission statement that really defined what I wanted the company to be, or what I wanted us to accomplish. And really that to tie that into the faith component, our company mission statement really is just a reflection of my personal mission statement, which is that I think God put me on the planet to serve other people. Full stop. That's what I'm here for. And so, again, our mission is to use our abilities and technology to have a positive impact on the lives of our clients, employees, and community. That if I can have a positive impact on people's lives, if I can use the little bit of influence that I've been given to do that, then we will have done a good job. And so what we learned after a few years of operating with just that mission is that that's not enough to really help infuse a culture into a company. And so I work with a business coach that I've had for many years, 10 years now. And he helped us. He walked alongside of us for about 9 months to run through Jim Collins's complete vision framework. You probably read, like Good to Great, Great by Choice. I mean, Jim Collins has got amazing books that are fact-based, in terms of his process. But he created this complete vision framework, the core purpose, which is kind of equatable to a mission statement, the core values, vivid description, and then the BHAG, the big, hairy, audacious goal. And so, the thing that helped us to give us a North Star, cement our kind of culture is going through that process so that not only do you have the mission, this is where we want to end up, or this is what we want to do, but how do we accomplish that? What does that feel like? And what are the values that we possess that if we hire people based on those core values, and if we treat our clients the way that we want to be treated as it relates to those values, that it really has a chance of keeping us, in the right path, right?
Well, what I heard there, I thought was meaningful to me is that, look, I think as a visionary, right, you cast this vision out there, but now you got to connect all the dots, right? You got to say, okay, well,
right,
how do we do that? Like, that sounds really nice, right? And for you and I, it sounds really nice, but like when we look at our faith as an example, you have to be in the Word. You have to be intentional. Like, you've got to be so that sort of stuff saturates you in a way that it comes out in everything that you do, right? And not just a mission statement on a website that you forgot even existed, right? When you're dealing with the day-to-day things that just happen, right? And so I love the fact that you kind of talked about the evolution of that because I think your intentions were always good, but now you've got kind of the process to back up those intentions. So thanks for sharing that. That was kind of helpful. I think that'd be helpful for anybody, whatever your belief system is, right? Just having intentionality around it is super important, right? Because otherwise it doesn't seep into the DNA of who you are and the organization that you're trying to build around you, right? And then people don't believe it because you're not even living it out the way that you want to, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and back to kind of connect the dot that we talked about a little bit earlier, it's especially important or critically important when you acquire other companies. We acquired a company in 2016, and if you're not careful, acquisitions can actually dilute your core values. It can dilute the things that you believe in without teaching those people your core values, because ultimately those employees, they didn't sign on to work for you. They signed on to work for a set of values of another company. And so we had to be very, very intentional, to use your word for sure, at making sure that our culture didn't leak, when we brought on another set of employees all at one time. And as we look to the future to do additional acquisitions, it's always on the forefront of my mind that we have to be able to keep our culture and what we value the same. And we have to teach it to the next generation.
Yeah. Well, culture is also one of those things that does evolve with every new person that you bring into the organization, particularly anybody in a leadership role where they've got people reporting to them. They're casting their own vision for how they see things happening. And so I do feel alignment makes a lot of sense for that. Talk a minute about acquisitions. So not everybody gets the opportunity to go through an experience like that. You've done a buyout and an acquisition, and you told me that there's potentially more on the horizon, right? And so as you are doing that, what are you looking for, in an organization that not only makes it worth whatever multiple you're paying, but secondarily, you could say this could potentially fit, from a culture organization standpoint, and then also business, strictly from a business standpoint. What are you looking at to kind of supplement your business? Like, are you looking for more of the same? Somebody who basically is in your business and just has more clients that you can, again, bring into the fold? Or is it primarily, are you looking for something outside of the services that you offer that you can now offer in addition to your core business, if that makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of boil this down. You can ask Ashley, I love to do bullet points of 3. So I'll give you 3 bullet points. Okay. 1, you could be looking for mass. And that was our first acquisition. It was in our same market. It was our same industry. We're really just trying to grow so that we can withstand a client outage or a client leaving, or we can withstand employees leaving or a downturn in the economy, that we have more mass as an organization to get to accomplish our goals. So that's number 1. Bullet point number 2, you could be looking to increase your service lines. We do one service, we do managed services, but maybe we're looking to acquire a hosting company, or we're looking to acquire a software development firm, one that is related to our industry and not a huge departure. We're not getting into commercial real estate here. But we're looking to add to our service offerings to be able to increase the breadth of what we do, not just the depth. And then lastly, it could be geographical. We're in Atlanta, Georgia. We're based in the metro Atlanta area, but we would love to expand in the Southeast. So we might be looking to acquire a small MSP in Nashville or Birmingham or Greenville, so that we can start to expand the reach geographically. So in my mind, those are the three things that we look at in terms of why, answering the why. Why would we do an acquisition?
Right. And do you think that that should be different based on, the size of the organization, or do you feel like those are pretty solid core principles for anybody looking to do an acquisition?
Sure. I can't speak to the enterprise because I haven't been one yet, but I'll let you know when I get there. But I do think with maybe some tweaking, those are fairly universal. But back to your original question, you need to know which answer it is. Just saying I want to acquire, it can sound sexy, that we could double our size or add an additional 50% overnight. But that is not the whole story. There's a lot of work. It's always more complicated. It always takes longer to successfully integrate an acquisition than you think it will. So it is a very strategic thing to do, not one without, the risk of peril at some point along the way. But you really need to know why you're doing it, because you might end up, in a place that you didn't intend to because it sounded good,
Absolutely. I'm curious your perspective on this, because we're seeing more and more businesses get bought and sold today than we've ever seen. A lot of times, the exit strategy for business owners was like, I'm going to give it to my kids. I'm going to sell it to my business partner. But now you see, organizations, business brokers, things like that. I mean, the opportunity to sell to a private equity group. If you were starting a business today, do you think kind of the build it, the organic from nothing to something kind of approach, or stepping into a well-oiled machine makes more sense, and maybe just taking on the debt to purchase a business that you're interested in? Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I was having this conversation last week with another business owner, and I think part of it is determined on where you are in your career, and kind of your life. I'm 47 now. I have a wife and 2 kids and a dog at home, and I can't imagine going back to that starting from nothing. Mm-hmm. Not because I don't have the desire or the energy, but just because I have other demands of my time that I'm not willing to give up. I want to be at my kids' baseball games. I want to be able to take vacations, and I can't afford, from a life perspective, to work 80 hours a week, right now. So the organic kind of grow from nothing isn't attractive to me. Buying in with private equity to an established industry and established company is a lot more attractive, and one that I would lean into. But if I'm, back at 26 and I'm single and I've got nothing but time seemingly on my hands, the ability to bootstrap and create something from nothing, has its merits as well.
Yeah. I love the balanced approach you take there, because you gave some real life examples of like, where are you at, right? Mm-hmm. Like how many years of experience, how much time you got, because that's important, right? Yeah. You got kids, and your kids, and your bride, deserve some time. So going back to 80 hours a week, that just can't happen. And so, I appreciate the perspective there. So kind of rounding home here, I always like to think, you've got some sage pieces of advice that you probably give entrepreneurs you talk to all the time, or people who are interested in it. What are those pieces of advice that you would kind of leave us with before we get off here?
Sure. One of the things that I learned years ago, it's funny to talk through this from my failures, but that's usually the easiest way. I thought you either were a leader or you weren't. People were born with leadership abilities or they weren't, and that was binary. And really over my growth, both at Logicspeak as a company, but also my own personal growth, one of the things I had to learn is that leadership is something to study and something to work at and something to develop. So for anyone thinking of starting a business or, really that entrepreneurial spirit, the best thing that you can do for your journey is to focus on becoming the best version of you, the best leader, the best person that you can possibly be. Because that will pay dividends absolutely for the rest of your life, and will make the journey of owning, running, starting a company a lot more enjoyable, productive, and less stressful, for sure. One of the other things that we already kind of touched on, that I'll dive into a little bit more, is that ownership, business ownership, small business ownership in particular, can be a very lonely place. It's a small club of people who kind of understand the challenges that you face, the pressure that you have, also the burden that you carry on your shoulders. And I learned from some really smart people along the way that you have to build a team of people, mentors that you can rely on, mentors that you can go and say, listen, I don't know what to do. Can you please just help me? Or I know you can't solve this, but can you just listen for a little bit? You've got to have people in your personal community that can help you, and that can, just as I say it, I kind of get goosebumps thinking about the people in my group, and my board, of people that I can go to that will drop anything and answer a phone call and listen and give me advice and help me to reframe and see things clearly. My business coach is also a friend, and, kind of sometimes I call him my business therapist as well. And he will answer the phone and literally just listen and share in the disappointments and rejoice in the successes. But so small business ownership is not a single sport. It's not a one person sport. So you've got to build that community, or else you'll just go crazy. The other thing that I would say is especially if you're starting a technology company, you're probably good at technology and maybe not really on the relationship side. You got to get out in the community and start meeting people as early as you possibly can. We all know this, but you're always selling and you're always recruiting. Those are two things that I learned along the way. You never know where that next hire is going to come from. You never know when you're going to need them, and waiting until you're overwhelmed and can't, see the forest for the trees. That's not when you hire. You've got to be looking for people ahead of time and hiring those people. And, I think, frankly, one of the things I've learned in 20 years is that we shouldn't have the expectation that employees are going to work at our companies forever. We all just kind of act like everyone just wants to retire here like we do. But we should build our model to allow for employees to grow in their careers and then move on to bigger and better things. And so consequently, we should always be looking, for hires and for new employees to help, kind of along the journey or along the path. So those are three things that I wish I had known earlier, that have come up over and over again, kind of in my journey.
What I appreciate most about that was just how kind of humble that approach is, right? Because you've got to realize that you don't know everything to be willing to hear something like that, right? And so I thank you today, Jason, for sharing really your entrepreneurial journey with me. And I'm sure that my listeners are really going to enjoy this as well. I mean, really, your transparency and advice for sure impacts me. I think it's also going to, fuel a lot of the founders out there that are really trying to refine their path on, like, what do I do? How do I do it? And your perspective, I think, will not go unnoticed. And really, to my listeners, I appreciate you being consistent with me, always sticking there and listening to the podcast. We're looking for, more comments and ideas on ways that we can approach this, ideas around topics. I know you want to hear from more founders. If there's any specific ones that you'd like to hear from, let me know, or really just within the realm of the types of businesses that might exist out there. But at the end of the day, I appreciate you. Thanks for listening to What the Tech, and we'll see you next week. Take care.